One of the weakest links in the rotation the last couple of seasons has been a former two-time All-Star. What should we do with Miles Mikolas? A question we will try to answer today on Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafford, and I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Loop, and a lifetime Cardinals fan. And I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter, X at JD Sports Radio, and the podcast at LO_Cardinals. We want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. So joining us today to talk some ball, we've got the great Thomas Gauvain from RedbirdRants.com in the house. Thomas, long time no see, man. How you been, dude?
I've been good. Those are such kind words coming from you. The great. I love it. Thank you.
It fits your last name. I feel like if you were a magician, Gauvain the Great would just kind of flow really nicely. So maybe that's something for the kids. You can use that in the future for them if they go down the magic trail one day.
If Redbird writing doesn't go my way, maybe magician could be my fallback career.
Gauvain, how are you with capes? Can you move one around? Like nope, Gauvain the Great. How are you with wands? Did you get with those? Everybody's got one of those. Well, Anywho, let's talk some baseball. The Cardinals have done quite a bit so far this offseason, and we're just scratching the surface, right? You know, things don't really get moving for Major League Baseball's offseason until after the World Series, which is going to begin tonight in Los Angeles. But, they made some important moves by, hiring Brant Brown and getting the new assistant general manager in Rob Cerfolio. But I want to start with a guy on the roster that, I feel like I've been really, really tough on it because I like Miles Mikolas as a dude. Like, I think he's very entertaining. He's just different, but he's a guy that, obviously he's there with the ball each and every fifth day. He's giving you all he's got. I just don't know if what he's got is all that good anymore. And judging by the numbers from the last couple of seasons, he hasn't been. He's been one of the most hittable pitchers in baseball. Like, you constantly look up most hits, batting average against, like just about any category that's bad for a starting pitcher. He's right up there, either 1, 2. He's usually in the top 5 no matter what. And what do we do about this, Thomas? Because you recently wrote on RedbirdRants.com. You kind of discuss what's going on with Miles Mikolas and what the Cardinals may or may not do with him in the future. We know he's not cheap. We know he's still under contract. What do you think they're going to do about Miles Mikolas in 2025?
For some reason, the DeWitt family has always been, they've held on to their guys that they've signed for a long time. In reality, I don't know if you've ever read Keith Law's book. I can't remember what it was, but he wrote about 2018, and one of the categories he talked about was sunk costs, and that's pretty much what Miles Mikolas is at this point. He's not providing much value to us as a pitcher. His ERA was 5.5, I think, last year in 170 innings. That's not a guy you need on a staff, especially when you're trying to lean young, like what the Cardinals are doing. So when I wrote this, I took a look at 2 previous trades that the Cardinals have done in the last decade or so with expensive players that they signed to long-term deals that just didn't pan out for the first 3 years or so. The first was Mike Leake in 2017. They traded him. He had 3.5 years of control left at that point. So that's pretty hefty out of a 5-year deal. They sent him to Seattle, and then they also sent $17 million to help offset his cost for that time. The Cardinals got who was the problem? Raider Ascanio. And if you don't know his name, it's because
just rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah, right. All-star Raider. The reason they traded Mike Leake is Jack Flaherty was coming up at that point. So they had a guy to backfill behind Leake. And then in 2020, 2021, that offseason, they traded Dexter Fowler in his last year to the Angels. He had $14.5 million left that year. We sent $12.75 million. And then we got I don't think we got like a player to be named later. That might have been who we drafted. Luke and Baker might have been that draft pick. I don't remember. Anyway, we got a player to be named later, and we sent them a whole bunch of money and a washed-up Dexter Fowler to make space for Dylan Carlson. So I think the same pattern could be used this year. Mikolas has 18.5 as his luxury tax salary for next year.
It's crazy, right?
It is.
Like if that guy is getting 18.5.
Yeah, so I think if there's probably a dollar value where teams would be very interested, I think it starts around $14 million that we'd have to send with him, and it goes from there. The kicker is who fills in for Mikolas behind. Andre Plante and Michael McGreevy would be the two obvious answers. I think it depends on who is kept for Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn, possibly Quinn Matthews, although that feels a little bit too rash for my liking to send him all the way up to the majors next year. It'd be exciting, but I don't know if it'd be best for his development.
Yeah, Quinn Matthews, obviously, he wins the minor league pitcher of the year and is this top prospect. And I don't know, there's part of me with the Quinn Matthews stuff, which I know his numbers weren't as great when he got to Memphis, but I also was like, well, this is kind of like the end of the season, and he's never pitched this much ever in a year. So, I mean, wearing down by the time he got to AAA, probably not the greatest thing. Like, I would love to see how he starts off the first couple of months, but we're not talking about a guy who's, a high school kid who's in his first year and he's like 19, 20 years old. We're talking about he's a man. I mean, this is a guy that played in college and, he's going to be pushing towards his mid-20s already. So I know that we're used to being patient because you don't want to force anything. You want to make sure he develops well and whatnot. But at the same time, like, isn't that what our pitching coaches and stuff are supposed to be able to do at the major league level? Like, help these guys develop and get better. I mean, we saw Michael McGreevy pitch very, very well when he got up to the big leagues, which was something that he didn't do all that much at Memphis before he got called up. And people are like, were kind of giving me flack about this. And I was like, dude, tell me coming into 2024 where Michael McGreevy was on your radar as a prospect. Yeah. He really wasn't all that big of a deal. Like, it was almost kind of like when I was talking to people and they were like, we don't know if this kid's going to work out. Like, it might be a busted first round pick. And then something worked. And I'm sure the stats and what he started doing that made things a whole lot better for him. But like, all of a sudden he turned things around, and it kind of coincided with that start with the Cardinals. Like, things were better at AAA, but after that, he really took off and was outstanding. And obviously we saw what he did in his next couple of appearances at the big league level. And now all of a sudden we're talking about a guy who's going to be a 4 or 5 in your rotation next year, as opposed to somebody who may not make the roster, the 40-man roster anymore. So I get being patient with Quinn Matthews, but at the same time, like, if he's doing what he did at AA and he's doing it at AAA, it doesn't make any sense to keep him down there anymore. I mean, might as well use his talents at the major league level, and maybe that'll offset the ability to trade somebody like Steven Matz or a Miles Mikolas. That would be great. In my eyes, I just don't. I don't know how much they're going to have to eat to get him out of here. It doesn't make any sense to have him out there every 5th day. And what the funny part was, too, and I didn't realize this until I was going through stats. Did you know that he led the club in quality starts last year? Miles Mikolas led the club.
I would love to see what his run support was then, because he was not saving many runs.
No, that was the hilarious part about it. I was like, you got to be kidding me. No way.
That's
did
crazy.
He lead this team in quality, but he did. And
I guess Sonny Gray was hurt for about 3 or 4 starts, right? He lost some ground there. Lance Lynn.
And I wonder, and it's kind of the part that's kind of maddening about Mikolas to me is because when you'll see him and he'll have like a 2 or 3 game stretch, and you're like, there he is. He's because he's got to live on the corners, right? He can't live over even remotely to the heart of the plate, or he gets shelled. It's not like they score like, oh, he gave up 4 runs. No, it's either like he gives up 2 over 6 innings, or he gives up 8 in 3. Like, there's like no in between.
No, they'll still throw him out for 6 innings though if he's just gonna eat him.
Like, well, we need you to keep going, dude, because you got that rubber arm. So, and it's tough because there's like part of me, like 2 years ago, I was like, why is everybody so down on Miles Mikolas? And now I'm that guy that's like, dude, it's time to move on. And I don't know. If there's a guy like Quinn who's ready to roll, then I don't see why not. Or even like a Gordon Graceffo. If there's somebody like, I don't know if they're going to make
Thompson,
him a starter.
give him another shot, probably.
Yeah, I don't know if he's starting or relieving. I don't know what they're doing with Zach Thompson. Like, where's he fit into the fold of anything? He's another first-round pick. But there are some guys that I feel like most fans would rather see pitching every fifth day than Miles Mikolas, especially for the price that you're paying Miles in the long run. So, all right. So we really don't know what they're going to do with Miles. I'm on board with trading him if you can. I'm guessing that's where you're at too. Yeah.
Please. Yes, please get him out.
Yeah, please. What's your thoughts on Matz real quick? Do you want to keep him around? Because, talking with Jeff Jones the other day, he's right where he might be easier to trade because he can give you minor league or bullpen. He could be out there or he could be a starter. But at the same time, I'm like, the Cardinals could use a guy like that as well. Do we really want to push Matz out the door when he's making $11 million? I know it's expensive because he's always hurt. So maybe you want to dump him because you're afraid he's going to get hurt again, which makes a whole lot of sense. But where are you with Matz?
I'd rather keep him. I think he provides more value to us than what he could get in a return in a trade. Whereas with Miles Mikolas, he's giving us no value on the team. May as well ship him off, save some money. Matz, like you said, could be that swingman guy that we need. Bullpen starter, some sort of flux there. If we don't sign Gibson or Lynn, and if we trade Mikolas, he will have to be a starter probably for us too. So it's a little bit of assurance with him, but I don't think he's an untradeable person. 11 million isn't too much for a guy of his role. So I think he still has some value in the market.
And it's his last year, right? Like his contract's up.
I think so. Yeah.
I think this is the fourth year for him. So that would be the
it will be.
So. But yeah, it's and it's a shame too because we like Matz, and when he's been out there, after he kind of figures things out, like he's usually pretty decent. It's not like he's been terrible when he gets out on the mound outside of a few starts over the last few years. But just can't keep him out there. He's just constantly hurt. So I feel the same way. I feel like going into spring training, like I feel like I kind of want him around a little bit just in case, that. And if things do work out in the rotation, put them in the bullpen. I mean, there's nobody saying you can't do that. So, all right. I want to get to some of these off the field hires because I want to get your opinion on new hitting coach Brant Brown and new assistant GM Rob Cerfolio. So we'll have more with Thomas Gauvain coming up next on Locked On Cardinals. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you need to do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long with PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. It's the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, which is always nice. Your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. It's the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million users. You can sign in today and play alongside some of the famous guys like Sean O'Malley. He's in there. Joe Budden is in there as well. PrizePicks is the best place to get the real money sports action. They put their members first, which is awesome. It's always nice to be felt like you're important to a company. So all withdrawals are fast, they're safe, they're secure. And when your picks hit, you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. So download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. We got the World Series tonight. Dodgers and Yankees from LA, obviously, would be a little more entertaining with PrizePicks involved there. So again, download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. You can leave your comments on YouTube as well as on Twitter X anytime you want. That feedback always welcome and encouraged. Thomas Gauvain from RedbirdRants.com joining us today. You can follow him on Twitter X as well, at Thomas Gauvain. The offseason, as far as filling out roles within the organization, picked up some steam earlier in the week. Brant Brown is going to be your new hitting coach for the St. Louis Cardinals. And then you've got Rob Cerfolio coming in from the Guardians and John Jay. But I don't think anybody has really any questions about John Jay. Everybody loves him. part of the family already. So I'm not really worried about that move whatsoever. He's just going to kind of take over for Willie McGee. But the Brant Brown hire, I want your thoughts on this. Is this a smart hire in your eyes, or are you a bit skeptical like I am, considering what just happened to him in Seattle? I don't want to say what happened in Seattle is exactly what Brant Brown is, but at the same time, it's what we have to go on. You got that. You got his year with the Marlins, and I go look at the Marlins stats, and I'm kind of like, I don't see anything that's all that great about what they ended up doing. Granted, the talent in Miami probably not as good, at least in our opinion, what the Cardinals are offering. But what are your thoughts on Brant Brown? Good or bad?
Probably bad, but the more I've read about him these last few days, he's got support from Skip Schumacher, which goes a long way, in my opinion, too. Seattle, I don't know if that was necessarily fully him. You mentioned in the last few episodes, Scott Service was fired afterwards. He wasn't even the primary hitting coach there either.
Yeah. So
that it wasn't all on him necessarily. But also, he was probably getting the most contact with the big players like Julio Rodriguez that they have there. And if Julio was having a bad season, that might be on Brown too. If we trade everybody, we may not have any big players. So that doesn't even matter. But I'm skeptical. It felt like there were better coaches out there that we could have tried to hire. I don't know what the interview process looked like. I don't know who reached out to them. I've been making lists all summer about guys. I think I hit 10 total by the end of it all who probably have been at least comparable. I would have loved Atlanta's old hitting coach, Kevin Seitzer, but he might have been getting calls somewhere else, or we may not have even contacted him. I'm not sure how that would have gone. So skeptical would be my.
Yeah, I guess the thing is that you and I were not in the clubhouse, so we don't know how these guys take in information, like who likes things to be really analytical and who likes things simplified. But in interviews that I've gone over and heard Brant Brown speak, like he sounds like my old math teacher, the way he talks, like where it was just whoosh over my head. I wasn't good at that. I didn't take that information in well. It was tough for me to process. I was never very good at math. It wasn't my thing, specifically outside of like, the basic stuff. If I'm talking about when we get into algebras and stuff like that. But the way he speaks is like super smart guy talk, like to me, where I'm like, whoa. I was like, and he was like answering the most simple questions in the most difficult ways. And I was just I would get lost, like listening to him, where I'm like, I don't even know what you said, but I mean, can you just tell me if I should swing at this, and I wonder if that was an issue for somebody like a Julio Rodriguez, if that was where he just didn't mesh well with the way some of that roster was able to receive information. We all handle things in a different way. So, and I mentioned in the chat with Jeff earlier this week about how the Locked On Mariners guys were kind of like, I think if he was just focused on as a hitting coach, things would have been a whole lot better. And you never heard any complaints really out of Miami under Skip Schumacher or any of their players not understanding what the hell he was talking about. Things obviously went pretty darn well when he was in the Dodgers organization. So there really has been more good than bad. It's just the bad just happened. And I think it freaks people like me out a little bit, where I'm like, oh boy. All right, like, do our guys understand what the hell he's saying either? It's, I don't know. We're going to find out. But obviously, if it was so bad, you wouldn't think they would hire him if it was somebody who couldn't relate to who the Cardinals have on their roster. Else, what the hell are we doing?
And his analytical approach might appeal to the younger players that we're trying to lean on to. So that could help them as well. I don't put a ton of stock in team stats for hitting coaches. We're talking about grown men playing a sport they've been playing for 2 decades plus at this point. Like in the end, it probably falls on the players' shoulders for the output. The coaches have a factor. However, I don't know if it's as great of a factor as some people make it out to be at times.
Oh, it's always their fault. You know how this works.
Put them on the stake. It's theirs. Yeah.
It's never the players' fault. They're perfect. The coaches are idiots and they're screwing them up. That's what's going on. All right, let's go into the front office. Rob Cerfolio comes over from the Cleveland Guardians. It's an organization that prides themselves in developing talent, so they don't have to go out and spend big in free agency to compete, which seems like a direction that the Cardinals are trying to lean to and get back to, really, because when when the Cardinals were in their top of their heyday, they weren't going out and blowing a lot of money on free agents. They were making bigger trades and then keeping those people with cheaper extensions and developing their own talent within the organization. What are your thoughts on Rob joining Chaim Bloom's staff? Does this seem like most people think a genius move? How about you? What do you think?
You mentioned it, and it was my first thought too. I went straight to his Twitter page, and his profile picture makes him look so young. I'm 3 years younger than he is. I know, I'm 3 years younger, but it still feels different. Anyway,
he needs facial hair like you, Thomas. Yeah, that's what it is.
Well, this took me about 6 years, so I can't give it. Yeah, I think his hire says two things. One, it's a direction for the organization: younger, lower spending, and really heavy focus on player development. He and Chaim Bloom both have a very specific skill set when it comes to pitching development, and I think that those will bode well with each other. The second thing that it tells me is that we're in the Bloom era right now. I mean, he's an outside hire. He's a true outside hire. He doesn't have any connections to Chaim. He's not a Boston or a Tampa guy. So we're truly spreading our touch out throughout the league. He comes from Cleveland, so low payroll, high output. I think it's a good hire. I don't know everything about his background, but he's a Yale guy, knowledgeable, great player development, production. I mean, they have Stephen Kwan, Bo Naylor, Hunter Gaddis, Tanner Bybee, Brian Rocchio. These are all guys that are true leaders for Cleveland, and they've been developed in just the last few years. Yeah, there you go. There he is.
There he is. He needs a mustache. Get him a mustache,
something.
And I think he'd be golden. I think he'd be well accepted. Or you know what he kind of looks like? He looks like a guy that needs like the soul patch right here, right under the lip. Just that like upside down triangle soul patch thing would look really good.
We need some Photoshop listeners to do like 4 or 5 different options for his facial hair for us, and we'll do a vote for it.
Or we can get him like one of the, I don't know, the character with on Hunger Games with the weirdo beard. That
just
one.
Lean into
that might
it.
be something to really, stand apart from everybody else and all the other people out there. But
put some pictures in the comments, people. Please get some edits out there.
Like it makes sense. Like there's nothing about him. Like if you're gonna knock anything, people are gonna be like, oh my gosh, he's 32, but so what? Who cares? Like if he's good at what he does, and clearly he is, then it doesn't make any sense not to bring somebody like that in. And it's something that, again, is bringing towards a more youthful look to this organization, because these guys that have been around for a long time that, we call dinosaurs, and they've just been here forever, they're all starting to taper off. They're starting to retire, move on to other things in their life. And this is going to be a new regime, same ownership, obviously, same morals, same principles, but you got to bring in some new blood from time to time. And obviously the Cardinals have gotten a little bit stale over time. And I think this is a great thing. I'm excited about that. Speaking of prospects, let's hit this real quick. Arizona Fall League underway, and the Cardinals had 8 players that were invited, which is nice. That means you got some talent there. Nathan Church, Thomas Ajayci, Leonardo Bernal, Matt Svanson, Bryson Motts, Eshawn Henderson, Alex Cornwell, and Trent Baker are all playing for the Glendale Desert Dogs in the AFL this year. How are things looking for these guys? Because you recently wrote a piece about them. How's everybody looking so far?
Yeah, as of 2 days ago, it's not going too badly. Nathan Church, who I was not familiar with, is slashing similarly to Thomas Ajayci, minus a little bit of power, but Ajayci is the Cardinals' clear favorite there. I am surprised that he's still hitting as well as he is. He has a 400, 545, 720 slash line. He's probably very tired at this point, and he's still mashing. So these are like AA pitchers. So, and coming off the majors and then going down to AA, you're going to see some success. But his defense is where I've been focusing primarily. He's at second base most often, which feels like his sweet spot. Third base, he's gotten some time as well. I don't think he's a shortstop unless it's in a pinch. But I would imagine the shortstop pecking order, he's above Brendan Donovan, and then it's Brendan Donovan. So his defense is where I'm looking. I've never really been worried about his offense. Henderson, how did you pronounce his first name earlier?
Eshawn. It's spelled, what is it, I-X-A-N, I think is how his first name was spelled, but it's pronounced Eshawn Henderson. Okay. A lefty who had some pretty good numbers in A-ball this year. Honestly, I'm going to be honest. I've never even heard of the guy. And then when he got sent out there, and so I looked at his, I was like, whoa. I was like, not too shabby down there in A-ball.
He's doing well, and Matt Swanson is also doing well. Matt Swanson is a Rule 5 candidate, so unless we add him to the 40-man, he is up for grabs for other teams. He is probably the most fringe candidate that we have. I'm working on something about that too. I think Tink Henson and Takoa Roby are the two shoe-ins for a spot, and then he's a fringe guy. I don't know if they'll end up adding him, but he and Eshaun Henderson are having very good performances in AFL as well.
Yeah, Swanson was he was Paul DeYoung, right? He was part of that trade
from Toronto.
With Toronto. Had a really good year as a closer with Double-A.
Yeah, a lot of saves.
Yeah, had outstanding numbers. And I was a little surprised that he didn't get bumped up to AAA. But yeah, he's one of those guys that, we saw Ryan Fernandez, make that leap from Double-A and do pretty darn well with the Cardinals through the Rule 5 draft. I would hate to lose a guy like Swanson because we know how the bullpen, like, you got to keep churning arms out. Like
throw some young guys out there, see what they can do.
Give them a chance. And, that's kind of what they did last year. And so if there's not going to be an Andrew Kittredge this year and everybody's going to kind of move up in the pecking order, maybe Swanson's one of those guys that comes in like a Kyle Leahy did last year or a Chris Roycroft and can do some stuff for them there. But, I would hate to lose them in Rule 5. So hopefully that is not the case. We're going to talk about the World Series. I want to get on that. I also want to get your thoughts on Mo's quote the other day about youthful, the youth getting more chances, more opportunities. And, I want to see who you think the Cardinals are going to be trading, whether it's going to be out of the big three. Will it be Nolan, Sonny, or Wilson? Which one would Thomas Gauvain ship out to give somebody from the youthful side of things more opportunities? We'll talk about that next on Locked On Cardinals. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And you know how you'll be watching a game and you just kind of get a hunch and you sense a trend of things that are going on. You're watching last night's Thursday night football game. You got the Vikings, you got the Rams, and it just felt like the Rams were going to close the door and seal the deal. It just was a matter of who was going to catch that touchdown, right? Ended up going to Robinson. And if you felt good about that, then hopefully you use the FanDuel app and were able to do well with that because you can take advantage by those hunches going off in your head, and you're right there on the same page where you can get your live play-by-play, where you get the latest stats, and it's all right there, accessible, makes it very, very easy to tap in on that hunch and fire it off before it go, the next plays get to you. So it's really nice for whatever you're watching. You got World Series tonight, whether it's college or pro football. Obviously, the NHL is in session, NBA, college basketball is coming up. So a lot of opportunities to cash in on that hunch that you're going to be feeling during games. And you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet with FanDuel. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. Thank you again for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings you a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every aspect of the World Series. Again, Game 1 tonight in Los Angeles. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Thomas Gauvain from RedBirdsRants.com is joining us here today. Mo mentioned in his press conference that more opportunities for younger players. That was the phrase that continues to stick out in my mind. And I brought this up with Jeff earlier where I was like, not really an old roster anyway. So if you had to move on from one of the veteran guys who's got a lot of money coming their way, has a no trade clause out of Sonny Gray, Wilson Contreras, or Nolan Arenado, you're the GM. You're president of baseball operations, John Mozeliak. You're playing his role. Which one are you trying to move on from first? Not which one makes the most, might be the most popular, but which one are you trying to move first?
don't know if I can answer this, but my honest answer is none of them. Like we have no business trading any of these guys to cut payroll. There's $60 million coming off the books in free agency alone. That gets us down to like 130, I think, for our payroll. We have no business trading these guys, but if we have to trade them, it'd probably be Nolan Arenado. I don't know. I don't think he's on the wrong side of his career at this point. I love the guy. I love his fire. He's got a great career. He's probably a shoo-in Hall of Famer, but what's his contract? 30 million, 32 million, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not worth that money anymore. So if we're doing strictly value, I think it's got to be him. Sonny Gray is the leader of the pitching staff that we've been searching for. And Wilson Contreras is probably the most lovable player on the team outside of Lars Nootbaar, I think, and Alec Burleson. But people seem to have really warmed up to him these last couple of years. So I think Nolan Arenado will be at the top of the list, but I don't think we need to trade any of them. Keep them here. Just let them roll and see what they can do in a leadership perspective.
Yeah, that was something Jeff brought up, was like, they don't have to trade any of these guys. They can afford all of this. It's not that they have to do it. This is something they would be choosing to do. And it's kind of funny because, like, now that they're doing this reset, and now they're trading off veterans, where this past year they were taking any veterans they could find, and like, bring them all in. This
35 and up club, 35 and up.
and now it's like, all right, who wants them all? Who wants all these old guys now? In my opinion, I feel like the easiest one to move on from, despite his personality, is Wilson Contreras, because I feel like you're fine at catcher. Like you are. You've got,
and his price tag is very manageable. Like even if he's a DH, 18 million. Like look at Yordan Alvarez's contract. Shohei Ohtani without the deferral. Like these guys.
And he's Giancarlo Stanton. And he's still an outstanding hitter. It's not like his numbers were bad this year. He just got hurt in weird ways. You know, I mean, it just, what are you going to do? And that was one of the reasons why when I would talk about people bagging on Ollie, and I'm like, dude, your three best hitters weren't around this year. Like you didn't have a real Goldie or an Arenado, and you only had half a Contreras. Like almost everybody's lineup is going to suck when those guys aren't around.
Look at the Braves. I mean, the Braves lost everybody. Yeah.
And at least they still had a couple of those guys that were performing. You know, I mean, watching Ozuna do what he does now, I'm just like,
we don't say his name.
When did this happen? Like, when did he become this guy again? Anyway, but yeah, I just feel like being able. I feel like the easiest one would probably be Sonny, because everybody wants pitching all the time.
And he's still top of the rotation guy.
Yeah, like, and I've mentioned that before, like where he would slide in like one of these big market teams that's already got an ace in their repertoire. Like he would slide in as a number 2. What about some of these guys? He could be a number 3 and just have this 3-headed monster that they could put together. Like, you know, I know his money is expensive the next 2 years, but some of these teams won't care about that. But I don't want to lose them after a while. I don't want to lose any of these guys either. But if I had to trade one, and I would actively be singing the praises of Wilson Contreras if I was going to do it, just because of what they got at the catcher position already. Ivan Herrera, you've got Pedro Pages, and then you got Jimmy Crooks coming up right behind him, who had this outstanding season in the Cardinals organization, along with Quinn Matthews. So, and he's a good defensive catcher too. It's not like he's just a bat, you know, he's got a cannon for an arm.
His bat just came on, really. I mean, he's been defensive for most of his career.
Yeah, so that's just something that I'm like, and then you've got, you know, Bernal, who's at the Arizona Falling. I'm like, you've got some catching depth here. So unless you're going to move one of them to first base, that is something that, you know, could happen as well. What are your thoughts on the World Series? Do you feel Dodgers or Yankees this year?
Do
you like this matchup? Because I love it. I think if our team's not going to be in it, I want to see the two best teams. I love that it's an East Coast, West Coast thing. I love that I'm seeing Soto and Judge face Ohtani and Betts. Like, this is what I'm here for. I want to see the best players in the game on the biggest stage. Yeah,
you have probably 7 future Hall of Famers here between the two teams. It's the two biggest market. From a guy whose team was not even sniffing the playoffs, this is the perfect match. I did not want Guardians Brewers. Where's the fun?
No.
A, it's the Brewers, and B, there's no fun there. You know, it's just two good old fashioned Midwest teams, which is probably what people say about the Cardinals when they make it, but that's neither here nor. I think this is a great matchup. It's two of the biggest markets, two of the best teams. You get the big names. You have the international appeal with Yamamoto and Ohtani. It's got everything. It's a little bit annoying that the two most successful teams are one of them is going to get just more success, but I can get past that.
Yeah. Well, if you got the money, it pays to be able to afford all these guys.
Yeah, but even like the Dodgers, they're like homegrown guys, and the like Aaron Judge is homegrown. Gleyber Torres is home. Like there's a lot of drafting and developing there too. There's a lot of money.
You're also seeing some former Cardinals. We got a Luke Weaver in New York. You've got Tommy Edman. You've got Jack Flaherty over in LA. Who do you think's going to win? Who's your pick?
Probably, I don't know. Yankees because they're pitching, but I think I want Dodgers.
Yeah, I feel like my heart is with the Dodgers.
Yeah,
but I feel like I'm picking the Yankees as well, just because of their starting pitching. Although their bullpen's kind of been weird this year, so
it has been.
It should be entertaining.
Just throw out Luke Weaver for innings 6 through 9 and see what happens.
Apparently, he's a god now at age 30, just out of nowhere. He's all they've ever wanted in a closer, which for some reason nobody else could figure that out. And then
all 6 foot of him.
Yeah, everything else it just clicks right when he got to New York. Amazing how that can happen. All right, before we let you go, what's some future things that you're working on, Thomas?
I've got a lot down the pipeline. I've got 10 first base options after Paul Goldschmidt. I just wrote some guys that the Cardinals.
Is any of them Wilson Contreras? I'm kidding.
No, he's not on the list. No, he's not there.
All right.
Yeah. And then I've got some guys they should sell high on. And I just reviewed John Denton had a quote with 101 ESPN about Arenado and Helsley being traded. So I talked about that a little bit too.
All right. Yeah, that'd be another difficult pill to swallow. I
Helsley.
Get it.
But they need to.
The they need to side of it, but at the same time, I hate it. I hate it.
Yep.
When you know that you have a franchise that's run by billionaires and they can afford this stuff, that they're like, we're not going to do it. That's just
right. Just extend the
It's kind of upsetting. All right. Well, we'll check in with you again real soon. Make sure you guys are following Thomas at Thomas Gauvain on Twitter X, redbirdranch.com. Plenty of different stories. The offseason where things can be a little bit dry for Cardinal fans specifically because they're not in the playoffs, but you guys are covering it so well and giving us a lot of content to talk about and discuss. So we'll have Thomas back on here real soon, but you guys go check him out at redbirdranch.com. Appreciate your time as always, my friend.
All right. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, do me a solid and give me a follow, as well as Thomas on Twitter X at LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio. You can grab him at Thomas Gauvain. Like, subscribe on YouTube, help our channel and love for the Cardinals grow. You guys are the best fans of baseball for a reason, and we will see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.